Hey guys, so we've talked about the affirmative CX case, and now we are going to talk a little bit about what you do if you are trying to argue the negative in a CX debate. So remember, the affirmative, they have to uphold whatever the resolution is. So if the resolution says we should, reduce arms sales, then they have to say, yes, we will reduce arms sales, and here's why. So the negative has to say the opposite of that. The negative is saying that what we have right now, aka the status quo, is good enough. Like we could tweak small things with the status quo without changing everything. So there's a few different arguments that you can make. And one of the things about the negative that you'll find, it can be difficult just because you have to change your arguments based on whatever the affirmative says. And you'll find that when you go to debate competitions, for example, you'll probably not debate people that all have the same case. You may never see the same case twice. So you have to find kind of larger, more structured arguments that are going to work against a lot of different types of cases. And so you'll kind of just have this large arsenal of negative strategies to use, and you have to decide once you hear what the affirmative case is, which one you're going to use that day. So there's two different kind of ways that you can attack the affirmative. So one is called on case and the other is called off case. So we're going to look at on case first. So on case just means that you're directly attacking their specific case. So you're picking parts of their argument that you heard that you think sound weak. So for example, you may say that the affirmative's harms that they listed are not actually big enough harms to warrant this change, that they wouldn't cause that much damage. Or you may be saying like their plan is just outrageous, like that would never be able to work. You're going to have evidence to back the stuff up, but those are some of the types of things that you can argue. You're picking apart their case. One of the best arguments to make as the negative is a topicality argument. And that's just saying that you're going to identify how the affirmative has violated one of the terms of the resolution, which basically means that they're not staying close enough on topic, that maybe their plan is going way too far out in right field and it's not relevant enough to be considered for this debate. If you're going to run a topicality argument, it's very strategic and specific in what you have to do to accomplish that as the negative. And that's something I'll show you kind of more when we get into actual debate time, is how to structure a topicality argument. But remember, as the negative, you do not have to have your own counter plan necessarily. You could just spend all of your time arguing why they're not topical and you could win. So those two are on case strategies. So attacking things like their harms or inherency or solvency, or attacking their topicality, because it's all dependent on what they say in their case. So these are three negative strategies that are called off-case strategies. So it doesn't necessarily, you are listening to what the affirmative says to find out if you can use these, but you're not necessarily attacking their case as much. And we're going to go more into details on each of these strategies. But the first off case that you can do is called a disadvantage, or you'll just see it called a DA. And it's basically where you come up with your own suggestion to say that the affirmative plan creates more harms than they claim to solve. So they're going to just cause more problems if they do this than they would if they left it all alone. Then there's also a counterplan, where you're presenting your own plan to solve this problem that you say is better. Or the third one, which is really only for more experienced debaters, is running a critique, or a K. So the neg's arguing that the affirmative does something or bases their entire framework on assumptions that are fundamentally wrong. So basically, you're saying that the resolution isn't the problem. We have a bigger problem that needs to be solved before the resolution can be solved, and this is what it is. So it's definitely for someone that feels very confident in all of the other strategies first. So what we're going to focus on more specifically here in the debate class is going to be writing DAs, or disadvantages. So basically, we'll come up with some topics that could work for a lot of different styles of cases. So ideally, you would have maybe 5 or 6 different DAs in your computer drive that you can pull out when you get to a debate and after you hear what they're talking about. Basically, what a DA is going to try and argue is that there is some kind of unique disadvantage to what the AF is proposing. So if they're proposing that, X is going to happen, then you have to say, well, that's okay right now, but if we do X, then that's going to tip us over into all these other problems that are more impactful. And you have to be able to prove that. So we'll work on writing some of those in class. So another negative strategy is doing what's called a counterplan. And so in this strategy, what you would do is you have basically are almost like you're writing an Offcase, where you're going to present a plan that you think is going to be more impactful than whatever they said in their affirmative case. So you would say something like, they don't go far enough. And here is how my plan, this counter plan, works better than theirs. And then if you wanted to run a critique, which I think is definitely more like debate 2-3 strategy, you would be talking about how this resolution doesn't go far enough to solve the real world problems. And here's a real world problem we have to be able to solve before we could do that. I think one of the advantages of that is it throws earlier debate students off, because you're like, how on earth am I supposed to argue this against this? But there actually are very specific things you can do to counteract this. It's just one of those things you can't get too frazzled in the moment if you hear this come up. So those are the basics of what the negatives responsibility is and how you would kind of react to affirmative cases that you hear. We're going to work on writing some specific DAs and look over some specific negative strategies in class together. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching.